Welcome to the Aesthetic Doctor Podcast. We don't shy away and keep secrets here. We empower you with education, telling you the truth about all things aesthetic medicine while encouraging you to be the best version of yourself. It's time to look great and feel good doing it. This is your host, mom, speaker, and board-certified physician, Dr. Borger.
Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 27 of the Aesthetic Doctor Podcast. Today is a real treat because we have a board-certified dermatologist here to answer all of your skincare questions. Dr. Mary Alice Mina is, as I said, a board-certified and Harvard-trained dermatologist and dermatologic surgeon who practices in Atlanta, Georgia. She is also the host of the Skin Real podcast, where she talks about all things skincare. I am so excited to talk to her today. And our episode today is entitled Dr. Mina's Top 5 Habits for a Healthy Skin Glow. We welcome Dr. Mary Alice Mina. Welcome, Dr. Mina. I am so excited that you're here. And, we are going to talk about some of your top habits for healthy skin. My listeners have already heard about my top habits, but this is why it's so great to have a dermatologist here. And, we all have different habits. We can all hear things over and over, and I'm sure we've got a lot to learn from you. So why don't you just kind of tell us why habits are really important, why skincare is really important, and what you would recommend to our listeners to look their best selves.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Dr. Borger, for having me on and letting me share my background and knowledge with your listeners. And I was actually, before we recorded, listening to your podcast episode on your top habits, and I'm really pleased to say that they definitely are in line with mine and dermatologist approved. So great job. But yes, I am asked all the time, how do I get great skin? What's the secret? What do you recommend? And, the secret is there's really not one secret. It's really making good, conscientious choices, which then become habits and second nature, and doing that every day for your entire life. And if you can start early with those habits, even better. And, that's really the secret, if there is a secret. But like all habits, right, they are hard, and it's hard in the beginning to get them established. But if you really work at it and make a conscious effort, then they become effortless, right? We don't think about brushing our teeth. In fact, I can't wait to brush my teeth in the morning or at night. So doing things like that, making it part of your daily routine, is really the best way to keep your skin healthy for your life.
I feel that same way about washing my face at night or in the morning. I'm so used to the twice a day that when I hear people like crawl in bed with their makeup, I'm just like, ooh,
absolutely.
no.
I know, totally. Yes, exactly. I'm thrilled to wash my face.
All right. Well, why don't you take it away with some of your top habits?
Well, first and foremost, I would let your listeners know that the skin is not this separate organ, this separate entity. It is part of your whole body and your whole overall health. And when you don't take care of your general health, your skin is also not going to be taken care of. So really, it really starts from the inside. And I think people don't necessarily realize how you take care of your body in general and your overall health makes an impact on your skin. So first and foremost, taking care of your body and knowing that when you're not taking care of it, you are going to see signs in your skin. So as all doctors recommend, right? Eat right, exercise, drink plenty of fluids. And I can kind of break that down further into why I think those are important. Starting with water, most of our body is water, believe it or not. And it's so important to drink, the recommendations for adults are between, 2 and 3.5 liters of fluid a day. And I know there's been times in my life when I was a resident that I think I sustained off of like a Diet Coke and coffee, and that, was totally unhealthy. So making sure you're drinking water, drinking fluids throughout the day is really going to help your skin stay hydrated. And as we kind of get into colder months, moisturizing is also going to really help with hydration. And I don't like to universally say everyone has to moisturize or there's one type of moisturization that everyone has to follow, because everyone's skin is different. I tend to have oilier skin. As I get older, my skin is getting drier, and that does happen. So you have to think about where you are, or you have to think about your skin type first and foremost. Do you tend to be oily, or do you tend to be dry, or do you tend to be both? And what time of year is it? Do you live in a very warm, humid climate, or do you live somewhere where the winters are long and cold and there's a lot of dry air? So you have to sort of think about that. But in general, moisturizing your skin, if it's feeling tight and dry, is really important as well, keeping that skin barrier hydrated and protected.
Yeah, absolutely. And we definitely, believe in individualizing skincare. So I love that you just said that there's not one magic moisturizer that it's good for everybody, but really find a product that works for you. And with every habit, like consistency is key, right?
Absolutely.
Is what you do day in and day out. And if you guys watch the YouTube, Dr. Mina has amazing, flawless skin. So she's definitely like practicing what she preaches. I tend to be super dry. So if I don't like use a good moisturizer twice a day, like I get like that crinkly, like whatever going on. So, it was great because I never had that much acne, but now that I'm older, I'm really missing that moisture.
Yes, exactly. And then those of us who had acne are now, have skin that's not as dry. But yes, absolutely. It's not one size fits all. You may not need a very thick moisturizer. Most of the year, I don't need a moisturizer, but winter months I do. So thinking about that, and time of year and where you are in your life makes a difference. So
yeah.
And then I'd also mention, healthy eating. And of course, again, it's so much easier to say that than to actually do it and commit to it every day. But, having a balanced diet, eating plenty of lean protein, complex carbohydrates, good for you fats, unsaturated fats, those, your body needs that. Your cells need all of those components to function. So where people get into trouble is when they are not eating a balanced diet. They are not getting the nutrients, the antioxidants, the amino acids that their body needs. And even with supplementation, you can still, it's much better to absorb that through your food than taking a pill. So having a balanced diet is key for your skin health. I know, in the olden days, when people were on ships for months and months at a time, they would run out of fresh fruits and vegetables, and they became vitamin C deficient. And there's very classic rash that you can get with that, which is called scurvy. So, we know that diets that are deficient in these key components can affect your skin. Now, nowadays, it's not so much an issue of, malnutrition from what's I'm trying to say, from deficiency, like not food is ample, it's available, right? It's just making sure you're getting those fresh fruits and vegetables and lean proteins, and not just eating a lot of processed food, high glycemic index, sugars, things like that. The other area I see this for people who are really into health, but maybe take it too far with a really restrictive diet, where they eliminate all carbs or all fat. And you can also have problems with that as well, because again, your body needs all of those components for your skin to look and feel good.
I love that you mentioned that. That brings me back to like another episode we did about your skin post weight loss.
Mhm.
And the physician we had on talked about that as well, that, sometimes when people do lose weight or restrict their diet, they're just missing some of the key nutrients. And, like we always say, sort of shop in the perimeter of the
Yeah.
grocery store versus in the center, because that's where the fresh stuff is. Because like you said, all those things are really building blocks that the cells get everything that they need. And, the skin is, like you said, your body's largest organs, and it's amazing what the skin shows. I'm
Right.
sure as a dermatologist, you have diagnosed a whole bunch of diseases that weren't maybe even in the dermatologic realm, that people said, I have this weird rash and I have this weird spot, and the skin kind of, if you're an expert, tells you so much. And then you were able to be like, oh, you know what? We should probably check your liver, or we should probably check this. And you were spot on. So your skin not only can show systemic signs and symptoms of disease, but it can really show your overall health, right?
Yes, you are so right. It's amazing. The skin is almost like a window to what's going on deeper and internally, based on how your nails look or your complexion or elasticity. So there's a lot that you can deduce from looking at the skin, with what's going on internally. Absolutely.
And even though those habits are hard, right? What I said in my other episode, and I'll say it again, we talk a lot about procedures, and I know you're in a very procedure-based practice right now, so you do a lot of procedures. But, these are really small everyday changes we can all make to make our skin look better that don't really cost us that much money or time, right? So we all want, when we ask, women, men, whatever, what do you want? They say like glowing, beautiful skin. So I'm so glad that you're here sharing your expert tips with us.
Yeah, absolutely. First, what I'll tell patients, when they come in and they want to, not that they want to spend it, but they're looking for, what can I do to fix this, and this. And a lot of times, I say, well, let's take a step back. Let's treat sort of your baseline skin health first before targeting all these other things. And, I think we sometimes get down on ourselves when we're not perfect all the time, or maybe we didn't eat the greatest. We disappointed ourselves because we overate yesterday. And, it doesn't mean that today's a failure. It doesn't mean you can't try again today. So, I know weight loss is hard. I know eating healthy can be challenging. It's so much easier to grab quick, cheap packaged food than to make something yourself. But start slow, start a little bit at a time, and set realistic goals. It's going to help not just your skin, but truly every part of your body. And so it is so critical. And again, worth working at making this a habit that becomes something you don't have to think about all the time.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned all or nothing thinking, because that's really what a lot of people do, is they say, well, I had this today, so this whole day is ruined, so might as well eat my 2 pints of ice cream right now. But
Yep.
really to think about every meal as an opportunity to just even make one healthier choice. Maybe today you have half of your plate be veggies and eat those first before you kind of eat your pasta. Or maybe, today you skip the dessert, or you share a dessert, or, small changes in the right direction. And it doesn't have to be perfect. The aggregate of all those changes really shows. It's kind of like, spending money. Every time you save $1 at the end of the month, there's
Right.
going to be a lot there.
Right. Absolutely.
One of the questions I was going to insert right now, as we're talking about diet,
Mhm.
I do have a lot of patients that struggle with acne. What are
Right.
some of the trigger foods for acne and inflammation that you could maybe share with us, that those with acne or cysts or inflamed skin are normally by dermatologists advised to avoid?
So, the classic one, which is a bit of a misnomer, is that, eating pizza, greasy pizza, and chocolate are going to cause acne. Now, they don't particularly cause acne, studies have shown that actually eating high glycemic index foods, very sugary foods, processed foods, that can increase inflammation and worsen acne. And then also skim milk, which is kind of surprising too. You would think it might be more of the full fat milk, but those are sort of the two food groups that have been shown to flare acne. But I think people get down on themselves if they have acne, thinking, I did this. It's my bad diet. It's my bad habits that cause that. And really, acne is caused by so much more than just your diet. So if you are struggling with acne, then of course, again, eating a balanced diet, not overdoing it with those processed foods is important, but it's so much more than just that too. And I just find that a lot of times these patients will feel like they've done it, it's their fault. And there's more to the picture than that.
Right. There's all the hormones, there's all the genetics, there's a lot of stuff. So thank you for saying that. All right. I interrupted your habits. We've got hydration, we've got healthy eating. What comes next?
So one that you mentioned, and I'm really glad, is smoking. And thankfully I've seen, I don't encounter a ton of people who smoke, although there definitely are, I sort of feel like I see these older patients who smoke and they've smoked for years. And then I don't see as many younger patients, but I do see e-cigarettes. And so I want to comment on that too, because I think there's this misconception that e-cigarettes are safe and healthier and don't cause the same problems. But if you're worried about your skin health, then they do. So smoking, nicotine, marijuana, all of these cause problems internally, but, your lungs, your blood vessels, but they cause constriction. You don't get as much oxygen to your skin. And it almost has a very telltale sign in the skin when someone smokes. And I think we probably all could pick it up. You see thickening, leathery skin, lines around the mouth, sort of a more, not a very bright complexion, sort of dull. And that's all from the nicotine and smoking. And you also are, if you have to have surgery, poor wound healing. So if, there's a multitude of reasons not to smoke. Your skin health, should be up there, but it's certainly not the only reason to not smoke. There's so many great health benefits, but it's really hard to have glowing skin if you smoke, and that includes e-cigarettes.
And I love that you just mentioned those, because I absolutely agree. I think so many people either want to believe, or there's this myth out there, just because it's not an actual cigarette, right, that all of the e-cigarettes, all the vaping, all the marijuana is completely safe, when in fact, a lot of it comes with its own health risks. And some of them are the same, some of them are different, but none of them are really harm-free.
Exactly. They may not have as many, chemicals in the e-cigarettes, but you still have the nicotine, and the nicotine in and of itself is going to cause problems with your skin due to that vasoconstriction. You're not getting as much oxygen to your skin. And again, with time, it's going to show.
And for those of you who are not medical, what oxygen does is, what vasoconstriction does, or constricting the blood vessels, means you're not getting all the nitrogen and the oxygen to your skin. And that's what your body and every cell really needs to breathe and to do its functions. So for the non-medical people out there, that constricting of blood vessels that we get really means that your body not only doesn't get the nutrients, but it also can't flush out all the toxins and all sort of the natural garbage that's released by the cells doing its thing. So all these toxins kind of build up and new oxygen can't flow in.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, number 5.
Okay. I just did a podcast episode. Now I'm trying. You can't have a dermatologist on talking about this. The sun, right? And I'm
surprised this was not your number 1. Actually,
I know, really. I say stay out of the sun, but I realize I should probably reframe it, because no one wants to totally stay out of the sun, right? I love being
Vitamin D is
outdoors.
good.
What's that?
Some vitamin D is good.
Exactly. You know, we want to live our lives. We want to go to beautiful tropical places. So it's not so much about staying out of the sun. It's more being smart when you're in the sun and, making sunscreen a part of your day to day. So, I don't even think about whether I'm going to put it on. It's just habitual. I wash my face, my sunscreen goes on, my face, my neck, anything that is exposed. So arms, if I'm wearing a short sleeve. And that I just do every single day, whether it's raining, cloudy, I'm going to work. And so that's number one, just making sunscreen part of your day-to-day habit, no matter what your complexion. So that's another misnomer that people think, well, I can tan, I have darker skin, I don't need it. But you do. And then I also, above and beyond, because the reality is we're not putting typically as much sunscreen on as we really should. Because again, you don't want that sort of pasty white look. So I also love sun protective clothing. So things like hats, wearing rash guards at the beach, wearing, like I have a little like cardigan that has UPF factor 50 in. So when I'm walking around outside, I will put that over my shoulders and my arms. It doesn't keep me hot. It just keeps the sun from having direct contact with my skin. So making these sort of little but conscientious choices when I'm outdoors to protect my skin from the sun is really key. So you can still be outside, you can still do what you enjoy doing, but just be smart about it. Cover up and wear sunscreen.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of UV protective clothing. And also, my kids, they're the ones that wear like the long sleeve rash guards. And I got to say, though, when you have kids, that takes about 50% of a little squiggly sand covered body that you don't have to put sunscreen on. So I do actually think that it's a time saver at the same time, because you only need to do like their faces and like the bottom of their shins and you're done, versus like having a kid that you have to do all over. So I actually love the time saving factor. Plus, I don't have to try to get my own back if I wear like that holds up thing.
Yes, totally. Yes, that's definitely a good tip, is get a rash guard with a zipper, because they when they're wet, they are hard to get on and off. But yes, not just with kids, but I love them for myself. I personally think they're kind of cute. They're sort of sporty.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, fashion has really caught up. Like, I have some really cute like bathing suits like that. So if you're okay with that, I would love, and then one question to follow up with that. As a dermatologist, what SPF minimum do you recommend?
So definitely SPF 30 or higher. We used to say, as high as possible, but you don't have to go crazy. If you have an SPF 70, great. There's the difference between an SPF 30 and a 50 or a 70 is really, really small, which is why we just say SPF 30 or higher. Again, I do find you probably don't rub on as much as you should. So your SPF 30 may be a little bit less. So again, if I had the choice between a 70 and a 30, I'd probably go with the 70 if all things were equal. But again, SPF 30 or higher. And then you want to make sure it says broad spectrum so that it covers UVA and UVB wavelengths. And so just make sure when you're looking at the bottle, it does cover both of those.
Awesome. Well, I love that. I have a couple other questions. Yeah. Thank you for those habits. If you're okay with that, seeing that we have a dermatologist here, I'm going to give you some of the questions that I get most commonly asked. And so first of all, does your skincare have to change with the seasons?
So it doesn't have to, but I would base it off of how your skin feels. So And it depends where you live. If you live somewhere where it's Florida and it's universally warm year round, your sunscreen is probably not going to change throughout the year. If you're someone who lives in Minnesota, it's probably going to change a little bit. So typically in winter months where it's getting colder, you may find you need to bump up your moisturizer or include a moisturizer in your regimen. You may want to back off of using your retinol products or some of the products that, if you're doing peels, things like that, that might be drying. So again, winter months, you may want to do less of the topicals that could dry your skin versus the summertime where it's hot and humid. You may find you don't need a moisturizer and your skin can tolerate more regular tretinoin or retinol use and peels.
And at what age should people do their first kind of skin check with a dermatologist to screen for cancer?
So there's some debate about this. I would say it depends. If you are totally healthy, you don't have a lot of moles, and you haven't gotten a lot of sunburns, you can probably wait until you're in your 30s to get your first skin check. However, if you've got something that you're worried about or a bump, then I would recommend getting in sooner. If you are someone who has a lot of moles or a family history of melanoma or a history of a lot of sunburns, then I would get in at the age of 18. It's probably not harmful just to get in with a dermatologist and have that sort of baseline screening. Sometimes people will come see me and I'll tell them, you look great. I don't need to see you, for 5 years or, a couple of years. So sometimes it's just helpful to go in, let them look you over, and then they can sort of guide you on when you should come back. But if you have a strong history of melanoma or a lot of moles, I would say sooner the better. And if you have a history of a lot of sunburns, tanning bed use, I would get in sooner as well.
Awesome. Thank you. So I know you have done a couple episodes on this on your own podcast. I, for example, remember one very distinctly about vitamin B3 niacinamide.
Yeah.
But what are some of your top anti-aging ingredients in skincare that really have good science behind them for anti-aging?
Well, so my number one for anti-aging is sunscreen. So
yes, God, great.
So sort of putting that off the table, patients ask me, what's my secret? What do I do? And I say lots of sunscreen and lots of Botox. So there has been good science that Botox does prevent aging. It improves your skin texture and collagen, prevents those etched in lines. But if you're talking more just like topicals, things like that, my other number one is tretinoin or a retinol. You can get those over the counter that are a little bit not quite as strong, and then you can get prescription strength. And excuse me. I really find that I don't like to say anything is a magic cream, but I would say that's as close to a magic cream as we can get. It is a vitamin A derivative, and we use it in acne patients, but we also use it for anti-aging because it sort of increases cell turnover, minimizes pores. It just, it's really the best anti-aging. If you're just going to use one cream, that should be the one you use. So I'm definitely a big fan of that.
Well, you kind of almost hinted on the next question I was going to ask you. What are your favorite aesthetic procedures, both to get and to perform?
Okay. Well, to get would be I should say botulinum toxin, trade name Botox or Xeomin or Dysport. I find that it just a little bit can go a long way. It can be done really naturally. I know some people get scared off by it from the name even, but it's very safe. And
look at her in my face on Zoom.
We're
still moving. I said, and all of you who are scared, go to YouTube and look at Dr. Mina.
That's right.
Faces. We're having expression. We're having a normal conversation. It's not two bots talking.
That's right. Yeah, it's it can be done. It can be done well. I just actually did an episode where one of my patients wanted movement so her kids could know when she was angry, and so we we tweaked her dosing so that she still had movement. She just didn't have those etched in lines at rest. So I think Botox is a great sort of pick-me-up. It can make you look refreshed. It's not a huge commitment with money and time. So I really like that. I am also a big fan of chemical peels or laser resurfacing. But really, I think you can get a lot of bang for your buck with a chemical peel. So I just had a lady come in, and she probably could benefit from a number of procedures. But I said, you know what? You got to start with a chemical peel. We need to sort of refresh, get a nice complexion, because that's going to make everything look better. So sort of improving your complexion, making it look even, getting rid of dyspigmentation or brown spots, evening it out. That I think is such a slam dunk for so many patients. If you're going to do one thing, I would say a chemical peel or laser resurfacing. And what else do I like? A filler. I love them all. There is so much fun.
It is so much fun. And of course, everybody has a different sort of place where they start and a different place where they want to end.
That's right.
Dr. Mina, thank you so much. It was like such a treat to get like all the tips and tricks from a board certified dermatologist. Now, if you love what Dr. Mina was saying, she has a great podcast. And I love how the caption is of your podcast. It's called The Skin Reel, by the way. I subscribe. Yeah. It's great. And I love how the caption is sort of like, listen to what a real dermatologist says, because I feel like that's exactly what it is. It's sort of like a behind the scenes conversation with a dermatologist. I always say, I want this podcast sort of to be like, if your best friend was doing aesthetic medicine and you could ask them anything. So now you also have a dermatologist best friend. So go follow Dr. Mina. And Dr. Mina, just tell all of our listeners where they can find you and what are some of the other things that you maybe offer.
Yeah. So thanks so much, Dr. Borger, for having me on. And I practice dermatology and Mohs surgery in Atlanta, Georgia. My practice name is Baughman Mina Derm Surgery. And I also have a podcast, like you mentioned. It's called The Skin Reel, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok at Dr. Mina Skin. And I'm sure you'll include those links.
Yes,
and,
we'll link it all in the show notes for you guys.
Yeah. So thanks so much for having me. It's always a ton of fun to talk about skin, and love doing it.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for listening. We will see you next episode. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Aesthetic Doctor podcast with Dr. Judith Borger. We'd love to connect with you outside of the show. Follow Dr. Borger on Instagram at Dr. Borger, and find more online and ways to work with Dr. Borger at www.theaestheticdoctor.com. Until next time, be well.